Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. We are excited, as always, to have you join us today. And we have a new incredible guest. Lynn, tell us about our guest.
Yeah, this is Cienna. She is a 3-time multi-6-figure business coach. She teaches women how to grow and scale their businesses using potential marketing and sales tactics by removing limiting beliefs that are holding them back. So we're very excited to have Cienna on, talking our love language. We love sales. We love marketing. We love money.
We love scaling.
Scaling. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate being here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit, like how you got into this.
Yeah. So this is a really long story. So I will do it as short as possible. But technically the story starts when I was 16 years old. So I started university when I was only 16, which is really, really young. I don't recommend that for a lot of people. And I think that has caused me to not really know where I wanted to go in my life because I was just a child, right? Like we're talking about a teenager amongst adults in adult setting. And there was a lot of new things going on for me. And so when I first started school, I decided that I wanted to be a corporate attorney. So I started taking business classes and I was going to go to law school after getting my bachelor's degree in business. And then I could not pass accounting to save my life. So as I am sitting there and I'm taking this accounting class and then I failed it, and I was told in order to get my degree, I have to pass this class. Well, I tried taking it again and I could not pass accounting. It is just like, I'm not a math person. I'm not great at math. And so afterwards, I had been binge watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy. Again, I was a child, so I was so young. And I fell in love with Grey's Anatomy and I decided I'm going to become a surgeon. So I went to Germany for 30 days and I got to study under all of these amazing surgeons. And it was so cool and wonderful and such a great experience. And while I was in Germany, I traveled a bunch of other countries as well. And I fell in love with traveling. I fell in love with other people's cultures and different languages and food. Oh, the food is so good. And so I had to kind of bring myself back to reality though. So once I got back home from Germany, I realized I did not want a bachelor's degree in pre-med or in biology because that just wasn't something that I was super passionate about. And so I decided that I was going to get any degree and then I was going to go to med school, right? Because that totally made sense in my brain. And so I closed my eyes and I picked a major off of the list of majors that my university had, and I picked advertising. And as a result, I actually fell in love with advertising, but I still wanted to pursue med school. So I studied and I took the MCAT and I actually got accepted into Harvard Medical School. And it was a wonderful time of my life. But I decided that that was not where I wanted to be, that that's not where I wanted to go. Again, super confused, just a teenager trying to understand who she is, where she's going in life. And then from there, I got my bachelor's degree in advertising from the University of North Florida, and I went on to start a career. Well, while I was in my career, I had an awesome job as a digital campaign specialist. So I worked on like multi-million-dollar ad campaigns for huge law firms and banks and car dealerships. And it was phenomenal. But I also did not love it. So another thing I didn't love. And then, long story short, because I told you this is a very long story, so I'm going to try to condense this. Um, Long story short, while I was working one day at my corporate job, I bought a plane ticket for $200 to go to Spain. And I went to Spain by myself. And I found myself in Madrid. And then I went to Barcelona. And then I just remember walking down the streets of Barcelona, and I was there for my birthday alone. And I just started crying. I could not stop crying. And I recognized that I love what I do, but I don't love where I work and where I'm doing it. And that is when I started my very first business 5 years ago called Your Life Travel Club, which hosted international trips for women. I don't do that anymore. And that journey has kind of taken me down a path. And so, just to condense the story, 2 years ago now almost, I found out I was pregnant. So, technically more than that because my son will be 2 and it takes 9 months of having a baby. I found out that I was pregnant. And during my pregnancy, I was diagnosed with a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum. And if anyone is listening and they're not familiar with that condition, it is a condition that causes you to uncontrollably vomit. And so I was vomiting for 120 times a day for 9 months straight. I was 70 pounds, extremely malnourished, and was unable to take care of myself, essentially. And as a result, I lost my business, Your Life Travel Club. Everything went downhill. I lost all of my income. I couldn't sustain. And before I know it, I couldn't afford to pay my bills. My life was getting really, really hard. I had just gotten married. I had just bought this house that I'm currently in. And everything was just turning upside down. Luckily for me, I have amazing grandparents. Rest in peace to my grandfather who passed away this year, but I have amazing grandparents, and they were able to step in and help my husband and I pay the bills until I could figure it out and get back on my feet. And so when my son was only 1 month old, I started my social media management agency. And after that completely took off, I decided I need to teach other women how to do this. And now I am a business coach. And so that is my long story on on how I got here.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that. I mean, even I'm not going to make it about me, but I also had some difficulties post-pregnancy or after I had my son. And it does, when it flips your world upside down, you're like, and suddenly I can't do what I thought I was going to do. It does make you reevaluate. And that's amazing that you were able to take it in stride, pivot, and change your life for the better.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
What do you feel like is something that really propelled your business once you started this new business? I mean, you had all this history of travel and business and law and everything. So what do you think was something that propelled your new business to where it is today?
Mindset. I am 100% am a firm believer that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And I think for a lot of people, we get in our own heads, right? Like, I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but if I speak for myself, I can say, like, even as an entrepreneur who's making what I make now, I get in my own head. I think a lot of times we see other people online and we go, I can't possibly do that. But I want to remind you that you can do it. You are strong enough, you are capable, and you are more than able to reach any goal that you want. You just have to believe that it is possible for you and it's already yours.
Love that. We talk about mindset a lot on this show, and it's absolutely one of the most over talked about, but underutilized, in my opinion.
I
talk about it all the time. Mindset. But then not nobody, but a lot of times it's not something that's actually followed through on.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Absolutely. So what is one place, because a lot of people, there's so much that you can do with social media, and there's so much, I mean, it's just like overstimulating. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's like, I'm on the platforms, but I'm like, I'm kind of like analysis by paralysis type, like it's just too much. So how do you navigate someone like that? Or what's your advice?
I would say first start with a strategy, right? There's going to be a lot of noise. There are thousands of other business coaches out there. There are thousands of virtual assistants, social media managers, podcast hosts. You have to remember that you are capable, right? Mindset, going back to mindset, you have to remember that you are still capable of making sales, even if there are thousands of people that do what you do. If you think about like going to the grocery store, the cereal aisle has that. I mean, it is huge. The cereal aisle is the one of the biggest aisles, and it's completely filled with cereal from top to bottom. And people still buy every single box on that shelf. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be placed there. So people are going to buy from you. And so my first step, and something that I would say to someone, is get out of your own head, move past those limiting beliefs, and remember that you may be a box on that shelf, but you are the best box on that shelf. You are the box that someone is going to pick because you stand out and because you showcase yourself. And don't be afraid to be your authentic self. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have the perfect Instagram feed or the perfect Facebook feed. You don't have to wear makeup every day. I show up half the time with no bra on, which is like probably not the best advice, but it's real, it's raw, it's who I am, right? I'm in t-shirts all the time, or I'm a mom. I have a small child at home. I've been growing my business since my son was a month old. Sometimes I have stains on my clothes, but I still show up in my stories and people still buy from me. I've shown up in my stories while breastfeeding my baby because that is authentic in the moment. I'm not breastfeeding now, he's 2, but nonetheless, when he was younger and I was breastfeeding him, I would show up that way. So get out of your own head, move past your own limiting beliefs, and show up like the confident person that you are, regardless of how you look or what's going on or what other people are posting. And if somebody else is posting something that is your competitor and you see them and you're like, wow, that person is so perfect, I could never be them. Block them. You don't need to see their content. You don't need to see what they have to say. Mute them if you don't want to block them or whatever, but get them out of your viewpoint because you are just as important or more than somebody else, and you are worthy of success.
Absolutely. I mean, I have absolutely no negatives to say about that, but I do have a question on, you mentioned a lot about scaling your business using potent marketing and sales tactics. Can you speak a little bit around what that means to you?
Yeah, of course. So I think you have to understand what works best for your business, right? So when it comes to growing and scaling your business, you have to look at what are your realistic goals. So I always tell people start with a number, right? If you say that you want to make $100,000 in a year, for example, so 6 figures, how are you going to get to 6 figures? So for me, I look at what offers do I have or does my client have that is going to propel them into that 6 figures? So I'll just do basic math. So like, let's say you want to get to $100,000, right? But I'm not a math person, so I'm just going to pull up a calculator really quickly. And you have $100,000. And let's say that you have an offer that's only $500, right? That means that you would have to sell 200 of those offers. And for some people, we don't do the math in order to figure this out, in order to actually scale. And that's what holds us back, because then we go, wait a second, I don't have the capacity to hold 200 people in my container or my whatever it is that you're offering. If it's a service, obviously, if you are selling a physical product, that's a little bit different. But if you don't believe that you can sell 200 products, you're not going to believe that you can sell 200 products. So that's where it starts, right? So go back to that math and kind of work backwards. How much of your service or your product do you actually need to sell? And then kind of figure out what are your steps from there. So one of the biggest ways that I think about scaling, because obviously if you're talking about scaling, that means you're already making money. So if we're looking at scaling, then once you have that math figured out and you understand what your capacity is, which means you may have to increase your prices if your capacity is lower than 200, right? Or if your capacity is higher, whatever that looks like for your specific business. Now you need to revisit your data And so for anyone who is listening, who is brand new to business, start tracking your numbers. Really track where every single person is coming from. How did they become your client or your customer? How did they find out about you, right? How are you increasing your visibility? Those types of things so you can repeat it. I'm a rinse and repeat girly. So that means that whatever works for me, I'm just going to do it again. And that's exactly what I teach my clients. Like, if it worked for you one time and that's how you landed a client, it's going to work for you again. Just do it again. So look at your data and figure out where your clients are coming from. And then you're going to be able to fill in. So let's say 200 people is your capacity for your service, right? And let's say 10 of those, you have 10 clients and you want to get to your next 10. So you can have 20 and then your next, right? We're talking about scaling. So if that was the case and the first 10 people came from a specific piece of content that you posted on Instagram, then remake content that is very similar and you're going to get another 10. So rinse and repeat, look at your data and understand your numbers, because if you don't understand your numbers, you can't scale and you can't grow.
Love that. Say in a slightly different language, but I love that. We talk about that all the time. Reverse engineering your numbers. Amanda will often say she's not good at math, but she's great at making money. But I was like, 1,000? Okay. So if it's $500, that's 200. And like, that's the way my brain works. And I love that you're talking about that because it is so important. And I love the second part of it. Then evaluate your actual capacity. Look at how much you need, reverse engineering, but then look at your capacity, because a lot of people do not then do that next step. So I love that step that you added, because even if they're reverse engineering, they might not be doing that. So all great points. I know you also talk a lot about, once you've identified, your capacity and where they play, right? So having those conversations to start converting. You talk a lot with your clients about having conversations with new clients that aren't sleazy. And we wrote about this in one of our books as well. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of people do still have this like mindset that sales is sleazy, and it doesn't have to be. It's the person that makes it sleazy. But can you talk around this, please?
So in my opinion, making money is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be enjoyable for both parties, because when you sell from a place of I can provide value rather than I can make more money, you are going to personally empower the other person on the other side of the sale, right? Your new client or your new customer, but you're also empowering yourself too. And so I look at it this way. You want to do what is ethical. How would you want to be sold to? So all of the selling that I do is DM sales. I don't sell via discovery calls or sales calls. I only sell in the DMs on Instagram. And so that's where all of my clients particularly come from. And so if I use that example of how am I communicating with them, right? I personally get to know every single one of my followers. I have over 800 followers. I hop in their DMs when they follow me on Instagram and I say hi, use their first name. And I just get to know them as a human, because there is a person on the other side of the screen. They are not a dollar sign to me. They are not a new number or a new purse that I can buy or a new car or my mortgage payment. They are a human being. And we really need to start treating people like humans. I get cold pitched all the time. I encourage you, if you are someone listening and you are a cold pitcher, please stop. It is uncomfortable, not just for yourself, but it's also uncomfortable to the person on the other side of the screen. Because remember, again, like I just said, they're a person. They have kids, they have families. We want to make decisions and buy from a place of empowerment. Let's say I'm going to use the grocery store aisle thing again. Let's say you're going down the grocery store and the cereal box starts yelling at you, buy me, buy me, buy me. Are you going to buy that cereal box? No, you're not going to buy that cereal box. You are going to run far away from that cereal box. And so while I tell people it might make you money faster, it is definitely not going to help you grow your business in the long run. My favorite thing is building sustainable long-term businesses, right? I am not building a business for today. I am building a business so that my son, when he's 18, 21, 30, 40, 50, can have income still generating for him, because that is what we call long-term sustainable, scalable business, right? if you are going to a car dealership and you're trying to buy a car and the salesperson is like, you need this car, you need this car, you are going to feel so uncomfortable. Treat people how you want to be treated. Get to know them on a personal level. I like to I asked all my followers when they first follow me, what is a fun fact about you? It is a weird question, but it really lets me get into their head. Like, I'm not talking to them about business. If they see my content, great. If and this is something I teach my clients too. If your ideal client follows you and you make them a human first connection, and then they happen to see your content or they happen to see your stories where you're selling, then they're gonna buy from you because they already connected with you and they feel safe with you. And that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about that difference between transactional versus relational selling. So really finding connections, building connections, rather than just like paycheck, move on, paycheck, move on. So that's right up our alley for sure.
I love it. We're on the same page.
Absolutely. Actually, my auto response in Facebook is it's a little bit of mumbo jumbo, but then it's like, if this is a sales pitch, bring your A game. Because I do love a good sales pitch. Like, I mean, I love sales. It's interesting that you talk a little bit about, because you're getting into the golden rule, right? Treat others the way that you want to be treated. And Amanda and I actually teach, because we've studied a lot in behavioral styles and personalities and stuff. And I love what you're saying and respect it. And we always say, treat others the way they want to be treated, because everybody does want to be sold differently. However, the premise of what you're saying is they're not just a dollar tag. Like, you need to look at them as a human and like build that connection and whatever that is. And it needs to be felt both ways. And I think that that's something that you were actually alluding to as well, is that because especially in our type of business, right? Consultants, marketing agencies, coaches, in this type of service industry, it really does need to be the right fit, because you're intimately working with individuals and you're almost like representing that other part. And so I love that you touched on those parts, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page with all of this, because I'm so passionate about really connecting with other people. Like, community is the one of the most important pillars of my entire brand, and like getting to know people. And so anyway, I can go on and on.
Yes.
But that's
Well,
important.
I do have one question based on something you said earlier. So you're talking about how it's so important to, and I agree with you that it is important to track as much of your data as possible, really try to find out where you're meeting people, where those leads are coming from. Do you have a way that you prefer to track people?
Question.
Yeah, so this one is kind of tricky, right? Because I say don't treat people like a dollar sign, obviously. So it's kind of tricky. But what I typically look at is who actually became my client, not specifically before they become my client. So there's a lot of different businesses, obviously, where we talk about doing a lot of lead gen. And for some of my clients, I highly recommend it, and I ask them to track like their who they're communicating with, right? If they know that that's a strategy that works best for their business. For some of my clients, we only look at after that person has signed the contract and paid the invoice, we then go back and track, where did this person come from? And not only that, what is the length of time that it took them to become our client after they discovered us? So let's say, for example, 3 months ago, Sarah, random person, decided to follow you on Instagram, right? And then now she is your client. She's like, hey, she sends you a message. Hey, I'm in, whatever it is that you're doing, offering, serving. And the thing is, I look at, okay, this is great. Like, I'm excited. Me and Sarah are going to do this together. How long ago did she follow me? Right? We look at that. What types of messaging did we have? Like, how did that conversation play out? Did she like content of mine? Right? If we're talking about social media sales, did she like content of mine? Did she click on something in my Instagram stories or a client's Instagram stories? Right? Because that's where I drive all of sales from, is through Instagram stories and not content directly. And so we look at all of these metrics, and then we kind of say, okay, wait a second. These people are really interested in these types of Instagram stories. So that's what we need to continue to create so we can reach our target audience. And so, yeah, that's how I would track that.
I love that. I can't remember if this was us having this conversation or I was having this conversation with a client. We have so many conversations, but I'm a big advocate of always asking, where did you hear about us? And regardless of what business it was, but I owned an alarm company for many years and I sold it. And we had I had old school filing system because I had so many clients at once because they say your client reoccurring, but I actually put on their folder who I heard it from. I had a tracking. I love Google. I love Google. Google pay me. I love Google. And I had it in a Google Sheet document. And so I knew exactly like where they came from. Like you said, like the nurturing process, like how long that took, how many touch points. And it is incredible because then you can turn around and make more informed decisions based on your efforts, based on the amount of money you want to invest in the actual bringing in the sources of potential prospects. Because if you're spending $10,000 on, in Facebook ads but you're only spending maybe like 10 hours a month in Instagram and you're getting the majority of your clients on Instagram, not on Facebook ads, then where should your time really be going? So take that money, keep it. Not saying that it doesn't help, but is that your best time and money and effort and energy well spent? And I love that you're touching on this because it is absolutely a game changer. And I can tell you when I'm Johnny on the spot with that, I am definitely more efficient because I do get distracted. But I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's so helpful. And I think like this is the non-sexy part of sales and marketing, right? It's like when you have to create that plan, when you have to strategize, people get so, what is the word, squeamish or yeah. It becomes uncomfortable because it's boring. It's not sexy. It's not fun. And a lot of times it goes to the very bottom of our to-do list. But I want to encourage anyone listening, put that at the top of your to-do list tomorrow. Because the thing is once you plan all of that information out and you understand where your sales are coming from, you will never miss time in your business again. I only work 3 hours a day in my business. And I'm able to do that because I know my data and I know my numbers. And the rest of my time I can spend with my family, which is important, right? For me, especially at this age of life for my son. But that's important. If you don't know your numbers and you don't understand your data or you don't have a proper plan, you're going to waste a lot of your time in your business doing unnecessary tasks instead of optimizing your days and having better outcomes because you know where things are coming from, you know where your sales is coming from.
Absolutely. I can't stress enough. It's not funny, haha, but it's funny, interesting to me when I bring on a new client and you sit down and you're like, okay, let's talk about your target market. Let's talk about where you get your leads. Let's talk about ROI. Let's talk about like the value of each client, lifetime value. And they just kind of look at you like you're crazy. And they are like, what are all those letters? And I'm like, I can't tell you what half the text letters are, but I'll tell you all these letters. And it's when you get down to asking those questions of where did you get this lead? Something that seems so obvious to me. And they just have absolutely no idea. Like, they have no idea if it's an advertisement or, the sign they have outside or just talking word of mouth. They have absolutely no idea where it's coming from. And if you never ask, you're never going to figure that out. And it's such a simple way to get data. It doesn't require an app. It doesn't require any like special tracking. It's more just asking those questions and writing it down and keeping track of it. And then using that to formulate a plan to bring you more money. It's such an easy way to jumpstart some of that productivity and some of that marketing know-how.
Exactly. I 100% agree. And I mean, if you only are on one platform, depending on how you do your marketing, right? Every single business is different. And I teach different strategies for each business. But if you're only in one area, it should be really simple to track. Obviously, if you have like Google ads going and Facebook ads going and Instagram ads and a sign in the front or billboard ads, it may be a little bit different But still asking that question to your clients and or customers, depending on what it is that you sell or offer, is going to be the most invaluable thing that you do. And that's why other companies do it so much. You hear like, where'd you hear us, right? Like you go on Google and you click on something that's like, where'd you hear us from? And you have to tap a button. It's because that information helps them understand where to put their resources. I tell people all the time, play like you are a big dog, right? Like play like you are a mega corporation and you are going to yield the results of a mega corporation. If you play small, you're going to yield small results, but I don't play it small in my corner and neither do any of my clients.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Well, I can't believe we're already coming to an end. Any last nuggets that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, this has been so good. I think I've said a great deal about obviously treating people fairly, right? Going back to the basics of sales, understanding your data. I just urge anyone listening or watching this video to take these things seriously in your business. Like it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not gonna light you up, but I promise you at the end of the day, you're gonna be able to enjoy so much more of your family time because you're able to do this now and you can see exactly where you need to spend time in your business so you can have more time outside. You didn't create a business to work in it 24/7. You created a business so you can have freedom. So actually go have that freedom and create your sales and marketing plans.
Absolutely. Well, so where can people find you and learn more about you?
Yeah. You can find out more about me on Instagram. That is where I like to hang out. I'm also on Alignable as well, but Instagram is my primary source. So it's just Cienna Kopischke. That's kind of hard to I'm sure it will be in the show notes, but
Yeah.
Cienna Kopischke is my name, my Instagram handle, and where you can find me on Alignable as well.
Wonderful. And of course, that will always be in the show notes. If you are listening on another platform, it is at thepursuitofbadasserie.com/podcast, and you'll be able to find all that information on the show notes for this show. Thank you so much for being part of our show today. We absolutely enjoyed having you on, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
All right, everybody, you know the drill. Like, share, all the things. Make sure you are sharing this episode with anybody you think would benefit from it, and give us a subscribe, give us a like, all the things. And as always, get after it.
All right, everyone. It's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.